what we'd like to do now is move over to the preliminary budget presentation for the 2015-16 school year. So I'm going to just pull that up. You can pull it up on your screen or pull it out if you are. Okay, so what I'd like to present tonight is the 2015-16 school budget. As you know, we've moved the election, so the time frames sort of shift. We used to be in that March agenda time and then an approval in April by the voters. So now we have a little bit more time. I'll present tonight, this evening, preliminary budget, but the board will not finally approve that until May 6th, at the meeting on May 6th, for the final completion of the budget. So this year's budget basically lays out what I think is the foundations for a strategic plan to get us to 2020. So if you can think about that, it's not far off. We were just thinking about Y2K just the other day, and we're in 2015, and we've all made it, and everything's good. But this sort of lays out the foundations, this budget, for where we'd like to take the district over the next 5 years. And I think things that are included here very much lay that foundation. The first one is very much along our path to our digital conversion and go to one-to-one with our district. This budget will, as you'll see, lay out a pre-K to 8 plan that we will be one-to-one and begin our process of digitally converting all of our teaching and learning for all of our students that have access to some of that high-quality curriculum. The second foundation would be addressing the overcrowding issue that has plagued the district for a long time, and then I think this budget will lay out the foundation for a financial plan to address the overcrowding issue in 3 schools. And then addressing our long-term district financial sustainability on how we can maintain these programs, staff, and addressing the overcrowding issue will also be included. And then ultimately, we want to lead the state in curriculum offerings and teacher professional development. That means what we're offering in our high schools. We've done a great job of the number of classes and offerings that we provide all of our students from pre-K through 12, and we want to sustain that and be the leaders in the state on what we're offering, as well as make sure that we're leading the state in how we're providing our teachers with the professional development in order to sustain that type of environment. So that lays out that strategic plan for 2020. As we get into some of the basic financial information, as you're aware, when the governor did his budget address 2 days later, we received our state aid back in February. It's basically about $13 million, which is flat, and which we received in the previous year. So we remain flat, which is okay in a sense of maintaining what we want. We definitely don't want to go back to the years of 2010 when we received those massive cuts. So we've been able to sustain, but despite the rhetoric coming out of Trenton, we're still not above where we were back in 2010. Edison has begun the upswing in its ratables for a long period of time. We were losing significant amounts of ratables. You'll see there's about a 5.1% increase in ratables, which helps. And that's a great trend. We saw an increase last year as well, so we like the trend in the ratables going back up. Our charter school allocation continues to increase, another 13% this year, although we do not have charter schools within Edison, but we still see that allocation creep up year after year, especially with some of the reform efforts going on in Trenton. And then finally, the healthcare premium contribution. This was one of the good things coming out of Trenton for our school district. This year, we'll receive about $6.7 million in contributions from our employees regarding that go directly to the healthcare costs. And as you can see, the increases, we'll get about 2.2 in the final phase of the increase. So that has been a tremendous help to our budget in trying to control the costs for premiums and things like that. But you can see the total cost that all of our employees in the district, regardless of the position, about $6.7 million in contributions. So the 2015-16, school budget has a school tax. The average home assessment went up to $177,300 of $153. That's an increase of about a little 3.1%. You can see the tax levy increase of about $7 million, and the total tax levy climbs just short of $200 million at $199 million. The tax levy cap is still in place. We have significantly been below the 2% tax levy cap. This year, it's about $4.4 million, that 2% on our budget. However, as the board has approved in the previous meetings, we have banked cap because we've been either no tax increase or below the 2% over the past couple of years, and that adds an additional about $5.8 million to our budget. You can see some of the increases to the budget. We have salary increases of about $3.7 million. Our health benefits by the contribution has been able to be controlled there. And then some of our facility additions are about $5 million to that total, about 9.1 of the $10 million that is being added to the budget. And on the bottom, I kind of added some other things because there's about $1.2 million missing from this slide, and you can see between the increase in state and federal programs and any of the new additional staff that I'll talk about in a little while, that kind of makes up for the difference between the bank cap, the 2% state tax levy cap number, and the 9.1 that's up there, which all totals about $10.2 million added to the budget. You can see our steady increase in anticipated enrollment every year. We expect in the 2015-16 school year, on paper I'll call it, about 110 new students. That number climbs every year much higher than what we anticipate, and it's all over the town. We've seen great trends at J.P. Stevens. We've seen trends at John Marshall. They're coming in all different areas. It's no longer one end of the town. They're actually, the way the homes are selling, we're getting more and more students from all over town. Although we have 110 students added and we're at the 15,000 mark, I expect that number to be much larger than, but that's our anticipated enrollment. You can see over the years how we continue to climb from that 2008-2009 year when you had 13,589 students.
Dr. O'Malley, just one quick thing, and I'll come back to the 15153 is what we have today, but that includes others, I guess?
It includes others out of district placements and residentials as well. This would be in our 18 schools,
Okay.
19 with the preschools. So our educational plan includes many of the things that we've included in the previous budgets, but we just wanted to ensure that although there are not many new things added to the budget, all these things will continue to be part of it. We try to continue to maintain our class sizes, our response to intervention to help our struggling students. We continue to make investments, whether they're digital or books in our textbooks that we've started. Our infrastructure, which is a big part of our initiative in technology, have to maintain a strong infrastructure, especially with the large amount of schools that we have in buildings. We continue our crisis counselors that we've added for both our middle and high schools, our programs for our special ed students, transitional programs, and in-district programs, our middle school sports that we've added to. We included with great reception, both our softball and baseball this year. One of the things that we are expanding to continue our offerings in the high school is we've expanded after 2 years of trying to put together our business courses in the high school. So next year we'll be able to offer some really robust business courses in both our high school, and we've been working on that for a while. Our busing and then some more of our technology and our continuing investment in our music programs. As many of you know, and you'll see on Monday night, the amount of talented music students that we have, and our staff in this district is just amazing. So we continue to make sure that we have a solid music program throughout the district. This budget would also include the addition of 16 additional positions throughout the district. 9 of them are teaching positions. I think the hallmark would be to the bottom of this slide. We are adding 4 high school college guidance counselors. Their sole purpose would be to steer students along the path as with their parents to that college placement and college path of applying to schools and what that looks like. And I think we'll have 2 in both high schools, along with the 8 guidance counselors at each high school that we have, and they'll be separate in their roles, but also coordinating with those guidance counselors. I think this is a significant achievement for the district to move forward with the number of students that are applying to four-year schools and the amount of applications that students are sending out today is no longer just 1 or 2. You're talking about each student between 10 and 20 applications. That's a lot of work. And as we as a district have pushed very hard for career and college readiness, I think this is a welcome addition. The other additions have to do with a lot with our in continuing enrollment. You'll see a lot of teachers in both the middle schools, especially Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson has about 1,008 students that we've reached this year, and that we anticipate will grow probably about 30 more students by the time we open school in September. But most of those positions that you see up there, an additional guidance counselor, math and language arts, have to deal with that continuing enrollment. In some cases, we treat Woodrow Wilson in all of our middle schools the same, but in this particular case, as the enrollment has grown, we need to start adding some additional teachers, even though we try to keep equity amongst our 4 middle schools. And so you can see in the high schools, adding some additional content areas, whether it's a social studies teacher or an English theater teacher at Edison High. We continue to see some growth. We have 1 ESL teacher in elementary, and so we believe that those 9 teaching positions are very much needed in our district, whether it's enrollment or for some of our support for our programs. One of the things, although we add positions, I don't want anyone to take the conclusion that we just never reevaluate what we currently have to make way for those other positions. So the slide that's up on the screen that you have before you talks about our staffing for elementary for next year and what we're trying to do. So the left-hand column is what we currently have this school year, and in the right-hand column is how we're restructuring our elementary program along for the 2015-16 school year. So we have 3 vice principals in the district right now in elementary. We have 1 share between FDR and ELC, and we have 1 at Woodbrook, and we have 1 share between JMI and Menlo Park. Next year, we would like to add 1 assistant principal, and we'd like to keep 1 at Menlo. We'd like to keep 1 at Woodbrook, 2 of our largest elementaries. We'd like to add an elementary vice principal to the FDR campus. So someone would be FDR, JMI, and JMP to try to coordinate that one campus. And then we would share a vice principal between Lincoln School and ELC. And that is sort of where we want to add the vice principal. Supervisor, we currently actually have 4. 1 is actually on the teacher schedule because she's acting at this point in time, so that's why it'll actually go from 4 to 5. Because we're eliminating, as you see the next line, 9 CRTs, our curriculum resource teachers. Those teachers will be eliminated from the CRT position. Many of them have either fallen to a supervisor position or an interventionist or going back to the classroom. So we're eliminating the CRT position and adding an extra layer of supervision. Each supervisor right now has about 4 schools. We're going to bring that down to 2 schools so there's more coordination with the curriculum and with the central office and trying to make sure that the supports are there. We realign. Every school will have a reading specialist. Every school will have a math interventionist, which we currently don't have, and then every school will also have a district interventionist to provide additional support. So overall, as you can see, our administrative positions are going up 3, but our total positions are dropping by 6. And by restructuring, we believe that we can implement the curriculum and the operations in a more efficient manner, but we're also saving close to $403,000 by restructuring what was going on. So I think it was important to do this, that not only we don't just add every year, we begin to look at how we can deliver things more efficiently and how we can do some cost savings for other things that we want to do. Just the next couple slides talk you through some of the intricacies of the different line items. So if you put instructional salaries, you can see the difference between the 2 school years. We're going up about $2.7 million. You can see the number of teaching positions and the 9 new right there. When we talk about, yes, we have a very large budget of in excess of over $220 million, but almost $100 million alone is coming out of the 1,152 teaching positions. And then you can see we add our grants. About $1.7 million of the NCLB comes from off that line item, as well as the budgeting for the retirements. And so our total instructional salaries are close to a little over $97 million. We talked about the benefits, and this is a good slide to understand how important that employee contribution is. You can see the different benefit packages that we have. Although we're only going up $468,000, you can see how that $6.7 million on the bottom greatly helps the district in its financial sustainability in its benefits. And you can see that increase in costs. If that employee benefit contribution wasn't there, you can see just alone how much it would increase a budget. We talk about our school administration, the additional costs there. That includes the additional administrators that were included in the additional personnel. So total administrative costs, again, we continue to be, if not the lowest administrative costs, we're at least half of what the state says we should be at, and then in the taxpayer spending guide, we continue to be at the lowest, and we're one of the largest districts in the state with one of the lowest administrative costs, and we've continued that probably over the past 6 years. We offer security in both high schools. We have 5 security guards in each high school, and you can see the cost for that for 10 security officers, a little over $545,000, and the different parts to what they have. Overtime would consist of like activities after school, football games, anything we do on the weekends would include in that overtime. So we spend a good deal of money on total security costs for both our high schools, almost $627,000. We talked about in our foundations for our strategic plan, we're making our investments. These numbers are exactly what they were last year, so we continue the investment in both our textbooks, versus hard copy and digital, as well as in our technology, both in what we purchase as well as our infrastructure. Mr. Barca and Ms. Beams and Mr. Luca will be before the board in May to talk about a lot of the infrastructure and technology initiatives that the district will be going through next year. So we'll have that presentation later on in May. Our transportation costs, we had an increase of about $720,000 to our transportation costs. Majority of that is the addition of our drivers and our buses from the fleet from James and Rowe. So those costs, that was why you see such a significant increase in those costs. That would be the additional 8 buses and the drivers, and that goes along with what we've added in James and Rowe. But you can see the contracted services. I continue to say this at the beginning of the year, and I hope to say it at the end of every school year, is that Mr. Griffiths and the team, along with Mr. Michaud, who deals with a lot of the transportation, we transport 11,000 students to and from school every day, and that includes out-of-district students with little or, I know I shouldn't say it, but little or no blank, I'll leave it so I don't jinx myself. And that's just an amazing feat if you know what it's like to, and that includes kindergartners, even our youngest students. So I think that's something that we continue to do very well in this district, and there's a lot of people that deserve a lot of credit for that. Our special services, our special service department is larger than most, probably 65% of the school districts in the state of New Jersey, with the number of students and services that we provide. But we continue under Mr. Conklin's leadership to monitor this very well. You can see an increase of only $84,000. If you look at any school budget across the state, that number is significantly higher and driving up costs in the district. So we've been able to maintain and not only excel in our offerings for special ed students, but also continue to offer programs in our district that exceed. And one of the hallmarks I'll talk about in a little while is that we'll be building a ShopRite within Edison High School for some of our special ed students to begin transitional services. And so they'll begin to learn those transitional activities. But ShopRite has partnered with our school district to build within the confines of Edison High School a ShopRite that those students begin to get skills. We'll be doing some online, starting with staff, doing some online ordering, just like the ShopRites might do, and you pull up, but we do it with our staff. And I think it teaches great skills, job placement skills, but just partnering with the community in just a totally different way.
It's right by Edison High School.
And maybe
Just
some naming
expansion of
rights
the high
later
school.
on as a possibility. But as you can see, we use our IDA funding to lower costs as well, and we have about $18 million in total special ed costs there. So some major budget increases and decreases you can see that we went through. Some of our decreases that we've talked about and monitored is our out-of-district tuition. We've seen our supplies and transportation services, but we continue to see those, as with any service organization, your instructional salaries and benefits continue to climb. We continue to make investment in our schools. This was something prior to my arrival that's been sort of neglected, or was something that was continuously cut. We're going to make about 1.7, 1.9 if you include the $200,000 in sort of concrete and asphalt work as well, about $1.7 million into our schools. And the slide sort of delineates the different various projects that are going to go on in our schools. You can see every school other than Menlo Park and Woodbrook, which I'll mention in a few minutes, will have some sort of renovation. As Mr. Michaud spoke about, Martin Luther King and TJ will have some roof repairs. Both high schools will continue to have some upgrades, whether it's to their bathrooms. Edison High will have 5 classrooms refurbished. That's tile floors, tiles in the ceilings, paint, HVAC units. One of the things that we're also going to do at Edison High is upgrade our auto mechanics room. And so when we say we're committed to all of our students, we're committed to all of our students regardless of career or college level, whatever path they choose. And we have just a fabulous teacher in our auto mechanics class at Edison High who's done just some great work with our students. And if you ever get a chance to go into that back room at Edison High and engage some of the students that are in some of that class, it's just fascinating. But if all of us, unfortunately, probably at some point in time had to bring their car to a auto body shop, and it's not too often they just put it on a lift today. Today they pull it in and hook it up to a computer. And so we want to make sure that our students have that ability to go into the job market with those kinds of skills. So we're going to upgrade some of the computer equipment in the auto mechanic room. We're going to try to instill some entrepreneurship to that auto mechanics course offering, so we can continue to make sure, regardless of the path of our students, that we reach all students, whether it's college or career. And I think that's something that we're looking forward to doing. And you can see a lot of the other things are whether they're door replacements or a lot of lockers. The boys and girls room in both John Adams and Woodrow Wilson are in desperate need for locker room replacements. We'll have to add an additional 100 lockers to JP given the additional enrollment. So we are struggling to do that, because lockers are interesting because unless when you need more, the hallways are already built. So you can only have a certain amount of hallway clearance for students to go in. The more you compress that, it wouldn't pass the code. So we are trying to put 100 more lockers at JP. We're trying to replace the lockers in the hallway at John Adams that haven't, I don't think, ever been replaced. And so we're looking to do that. And you can see the elementary schools, whether it's gym replacements or floor tiles or bathrooms. The EELC will have a new playground and a storage shed. And this is the first year we are not going to use FDR as a summer program, so we can make some major renovations to the classrooms and painting and some of the systems there to do that school as well. So we continue to make investments in all of our schools to keep our schools as up-to-date as we possibly can. The next portion of the budget is to begin the process of addressing the overcrowding conditions in our school. I know we've talked about this since I've been here in the 4.5 years, and many of you that have been on the board have probably talked it for your term on the board. But I think this budget lays the foundation to actually do something to address the overcrowding, and rather than talking about it as we move forward. So the first school we're going to talk about is Menlo Park. And that's a little rendition of what we believe Menlo Park would look like after the renovation of that school and the additions. Although Woodbrook is probably our school with, so Woodbrook and Menlo, Woodbrook and Woodrow Wilson are battling to be the third largest school in the district. So Woodrow Wilson has 1,008 students today, and Woodbrook has 1,003 students in a school. And if you pulled up to both of those schools, you can't imagine they hold the same amount of students. But unfortunately, where Woodbrook is situated, we have to send our application down to what I refer to the black hole, which is the DEP in Trenton, and that will take us about 4 to 5 months to get their approval just because of the wetlands. And so we had to flip-flop which school we were going to start. So we actually are going to start with Menlo Park, and then once the timeline that I'll share with you, we'll do Woodbrook along those lines. So in Menlo Park, it's a $7.3 million addition that'll be included in this year's budget. It'll include a gymnasium with a stage, 8 classrooms, music rooms, and additional boys and girls bathrooms. With 8 classrooms, we will drop most of the grade class size to below 22, 23, where some of those classes are around 27, 28 in some classes. You can see on the right-hand side a tentative timeline. We are working on a final approval from the DOE, so we should receive that next month. We could be releasing a bid in September, awarding a contract to the board in October, and hoping to have a final completion to the Menlo Park School in July of 2016. And as you can see on this aerial view of Menlo, this is the front of the school. This is a little parking lot to the side. You can see this is the 8 classrooms that will add to the front of the school. What you see in the back here, parents come in, kind of do the loop here and go out, but that is the gym. This is, I love this laser, by the way, but I can't hold it steady. That is the music room right here. This is the stage, so the music room would come right to the stage, and then this is the bathroom, and it's all connected here. So you're almost getting 2 different additions. The good thing about adding a gym is these students currently eat in their classrooms. So we will convert that wonderful area they call an all-purpose room into their cafeteria and renovate their kitchen, and so students will have a cafeteria, a gym, and some additional space to lower the class size in probably our 2nd largest elementary school, which I think is very desperately needed in that area of town. So we're very excited about this, and it's included in this year's budget for Menlo Park. In Woodbrook, we will, as you can see by the timeline, include Woodbrook's renovation in the 2016-17, 17-18 budget as a 2-year lease purchase paid for within 2 years. It's an $8.5 million addition, a little bit more expansive, even though the number of rooms is 1 less, and I'll go through that in a minute. But it also includes a very large gymnasium, stage, a cafeteria, kitchen, 7 new classrooms, but by the reconfiguration of some other classrooms, you'll see there are additional classrooms, music room, art room, the media center, and some additional, again, 2 sets of boys and girls bathrooms. A little bit different timeline. This one's a little bit more problematic because of, as you'll see, where the non-construction classrooms are, but you'll see that we look to have that DEOE final approval in April of 2015, wetlands by July, bidding by December, and final completion by December of 2016. A little bit different timeline. But as I go to the next slide, you can kind of see why we're up against a little bit of, and I've talked to the building principal, and we got some time to work on this. But what you'll see here, these are all of the classrooms. That'll be, the blue part here is the addition. So these are all the classrooms. Obviously, this is the cafeteria, this is the gym, again, a music room, this is the stage, and a music room right into the stage. This wall right here between the gym and the cafeteria will be some type of wall that can be opened up. So if we wanted to do a large assembly or a large science fair of some sort, we'll have this large open space for this school, which it currently does not have. This currently is the entrance to the school. This room right here is currently the library. We will remove that library, make that a classroom, and the library will go where the multi-purpose room is right here. And that room, which is the multi-purpose room now, will become both the art room and the library. And these rooms right here are just reconfigured because what we're going to do is add 8 sections to each grade level at Woodbrook. So our largest classes are 32, 33 in 5th grade. You'll be able to drop those classes down to 22, 23, which is a significant drop for a school that desperately needs it. And so 8 sections for each grade will drop. 1st grade will be a little less. You'll go from almost 21 down to 19 and so forth. So what you have is the different colors. This is sort of the kindergarten wing, sort of the 1st grade, and the different, you probably can't see, but if you see it on your picture, you can see we tried to configure each of the grade levels to be together. So this sort of becomes, this area right here is sort of problematic. This is the addition, which could be easily done, but when we transition, what we'll probably have to do is wait for this to be done in order to create these classrooms, to get these students to these classrooms in order to use them, because it'll be the middle of the year. That's something we have to talk about as a board, because if this addition is done in the middle of the year, how are we going to drop, go to additional sections and disrupt the education of students in the middle of the year? But we'll have some time to discuss that because this addition will be done, if everything works out well, somewhere along the December, January time period where Menlo Park will be finished in the summer and we can just open up school along the way with those additional sections. But again, Woodbrook is a little bit down the road, but with a pretty good plan. And the third part of it is J.P. Stevens. We've been talking about this ever since we did that initial demography study, is that every year we wait, those students keep moving up a grade and keep moving up a grade. And so to me, it's always been our high school, J.P. Stevens more than Edison High, that is going to see this large wave, which are currently probably in our 6th or 7th grade, that'll be coming to our high schools. Right now, we're probably somewhere around 22 something in J.P. Stevens, and we expect a very large incoming class. They're starting to get over the 300 mark in some of our schools. So we will begin the process of placing 3 trailers there this summer that we received for free, the actual trailers from the New Brunswick. So we'll install those for some additional classrooms, and we'll begin the process of working with the board to do a larger renovation to J.P. Stevens to address the overcrowding issue, somewhere along the lines of close to 10 classrooms at J.P. Stevens to account for the overcrowding. And that'll be hopefully in the 2018-2019 budget to accommodate that growth. However, I do want to bring you back and to the point of 2012, and I think what I want to mention is, although this, I think the budget lays out a pretty good foundation, I think this board should be very proud of the past budgets that you presented. And these are slides because some people tend to forget what we've done over the period of 4 years. This is our 2012 budget, if you don't recall. we had a tax levy decrease for the first time in Edison's history, and this board did that, and that was something that's pretty significant, that we did and we should be very proud of. We've always kept the tax levy below the 2% cap. In this particular case, we actually lowered the tax levy that year. And you can see it keeps going. We use fund balance to reduce the tax levy. We continue to have the lowest administrative costs. We applied the additional state aid that year, last June reduction of $1.9 million to taxation. So we continue in 2012 to lay these foundations for financial stability. This was 2013. You know, the tax levy below the 2% state cap for the third straight year. Spending was the lowest level in the last 10 years. You know, we had a combined average tax levy increase for the last 3 years of 1%. These are all significant financial decisions this board made. In some cases go unnoticed, but I do think people do notice. But I wanted to make sure that we brought it, and it's something you should be proud of because we worked hard. Many of you know those meetings, that we've worked hard to maintain that. And that's why we had success in passing some of our budgets, and I think that's why we've had success in moving the district forward. And then the final piece, which I think is probably one of the most important things that we'll be doing as part of the foundation of our strategic plan. This is our school district debt over the next 5 years. Our plan, which is this slide, is to be the first pre-K to 12 school district in New Jersey to be completely debt-free by the year 2020. And I think, given what's included in this budget and what we have done in both technology, textbooks, and additions, to be completely debt-free in a country where we live in, where debt is part of the American way, I think sends a pretty significant message to our community that we're doing some very good financial things. So being debt-free also means that's taxes that come off of your tax bill, because that's separate than the budget. So in essence, we are lowering taxes by being debt-free. But what we laid out here is actually our debt goes to 2023. But what we tried to do is condense that timeline so we would be debt-free by 2020. So you can see about $3.5 million in this budget that we're proposing. In next year's budget, there's another $3.5 million, and then 2017-18, another $3.5 million. All that includes Edison High and some of the additions and all the previous lease purchases and commissioner approvals that are in there. And then in 2018-19, about $1.9 million in debt. And then in 1920, school budget will have about 1.8. In the 2021 budget, we will be debt-free. I will be very transparent that what's not included in here is the James Monroe. We have not issued debt on that, and we'll wait for that. We're pretty optimistic on where we're going to be, so we did not include any of that debt in this proposal. But I think this is a pretty significant accomplishment for this board. For anyone to continue to make progress. We've always added teachers. We've settled 2 teacher contracts. We've upgraded our technology. We're going 1-to-1. We're adding additions. We continue to make just tremendous strides. And then to add that we'll be debt-free, I think is just so significant that, you know, all of you should be yelling from the mountaintops about what we're doing, because I think it really sends a strong message that we're putting good financial decisions in place. And so finally, the last 2 slides in this budget about, you know, where does the money come from? We continue to be a district that funds 93% of our budgets from the local tax levy. We get very little from both federal and state sources. We continue to use a little bit of money that we didn't use from the previous budgets, and then any miscellaneous revenue equals about $227 million budget for 15,000 students in 19 schools, 20 facilities, which talks about a 5.1 increase in spending. And then overall, here's where that money, a majority of that money is expended, in which different areas. Obviously, you can see in instruction and unallocated benefits is a majority of where our investments go. And so on May 6th, that will be our public hearing, just like we normally do in March, and that'll be here at the Ed Center. It's also a significant day. It's when we you will vote on the awarding of the contract for James Monroe. We hire a lot of staff for the proceedings for the next school year. And so May 6th not only be the budget, but all those other events that'll be occurring. And I will pause there and take any questions that anyone might have regarding the budget.
Ms. Barrett? No, Mrs. Ames?
I have one question in terms of the construction at both of the elementary schools. Since a lot of that will take place while the children are in school, how will that affect things like phys ed and, I mean, I know Woodbrook, both schools, they eat lunch in their classroom, so they're certainly not doing without their cafeteria. And they haven't had a music or an art room in at least 10 years. But just in terms of having construction going on while they're there, and what do you anticipate in terms of disruption?
Well, being in this district, I never anticipate anything, but I would say, you know, the Woodbrook one, we're hoping to get a lot of the construction and framing up during the conclusion of the year and through the summer, almost like we're trying to do with James Monroe, so we can get it in capsule, and they'll be working. And they're both designed sort of off to the side, and we won't break walls until, you know, that we have breaks and things like that. But yes, we'll have construction going on in school, but I don't think they're so significant that it'll impede. Like in Menlo, it'll be in the back. It's not even connected until the end. So I don't see any disruption to going out on the playground on that end or having that. It might be a little bit less at the beginning because they have to fence it off and things like that. I think the Woodbrook one will be a little bit disruptive because of when it's completed on what to do, and we'll have some time to work through that, and we'll have to flip-flop because some of the, you know, the library has to go to another area and things like that. So we're just going to have to plan a little bit better on the Woodbrook one. I think the Menlo one, I don't foresee anything being of major disruption to the school. I think the principal there will be able to handle it very well, and I think ultimately it'll be on time and on budget.
Well, I think especially in Woodbrook, knowing the size of their gym classes and in inclement weather, they have nowhere to go. If they could do the new gym and
Correct.
finish that before they demolish the other, I mean, I would assume as time goes and we talk that would be part of the plan, but I think that would.
Yeah, I think if I could
alleviate
go
some of
back
the
to the slide for Woodbrook, is what we'd like to do is do this addition right here. Once that's completed, then do these two projects
Okay.
right here, so the students could use the gym, the cafeteria, and then we can just begin to renovate these two spaces. What I have to ascertain is, what's the construction level at that? Is it just walls and things
Right.
like that, and sheetrock? This can be converted to a classroom very quickly, because we just take all the library stuff out, and it was already a classroom. So it's about this classroom, you know, not having the ability to have gym at Woodbrook here until this is available.
Right.
And that's something we'll have to work on. I mean, we've already spoken to the principal, we already started getting her mind going on those plans, but that's what we anticipate.
And just an editorial comment, having that wall that would be removable, I think is just so beneficial to the children, because for years, anytime they have, you know, their cultural carnival or talent show, or they always have to go to another building, and I think it would be very nice for the kids to be able to be in their own building and to have those assemblies and science fairs and not limit how many students can participate because they don't have space. So I think that was a great little detail to add in.
Yeah, we want to make it sturdy enough so you can play sports, but, you know, the ability to contract so we can have large events, especially with that stage there. You can expect to have many things.
The Menlo Park and the Woodbrook, are there any considering for air conditioning for the new wing?
No.
Reserved for James.
It was
Monroe.
not as a hidden secret, it's just excluded on purpose.
No, the other concern is for the Woodbrook, there's only one way in when the school's in session. I don't know how we're going to arrange all the transportation, especially, you know, the beginning of the school, the end of the school time. It'll be a very challenging task.
We are looking at some possible changes on how buses can come in, how they line up. At the end of the day, it's still one way in and one way out, but we are going to try to do some things, given, think about the amount of buses that go to Woodrow Wilson, or the same amount of buses, in essence, that go to Woodbrook in that one way in and out. And you can, that's why I say the transportation in this district is fabulous, because it's not as simple as just transporting them. It's the places they go and where they travel. But we are looking at some options on how we can maybe reconfigure the entrance to the school, our property, to allow a little bit better flow, at least, given the high traffic coming in and out of there.
I would just like to make a comment that I'm pleased to see in this budget that the needs, it's not just about college. It's great that there are guidance counselors that are being added for college purposes, but I was really pleased to see the addition of just talking about the redoing of the auto mechanics, that particular room, and I love the idea of the ShopRite in the high school. I mean, that's kudos to ShopRite and kudos to the district for doing this. I think that's a terrific idea. So I'm real pleased to see that there are nuggets for a lot of diverse target groups here.
Yeah, and I have to thank the board. I mean, over the past 4.5 years, we've really stuck to equity in our district, and equity, that's for everyone. And we really mean what we say, and I think our budgets reflect that, and our programs reflect that, and I appreciate you highlighting that.
Any other comments on the part of the board? I'd just like to say also, we thank you for your leadership, because I know it's some tough decisions, raise at 5.1% the budget, and to take it on the chin, because we keep talking about the overcrowding in the schools, and so we're really going to do something very, very positive to deal with that. So I want to thank both you and Dan Michaud for doing some even creative financing to try to deal with these problems, instead of just saying, what can we do? We don't have the money, so we have to, as the cliche would say, bite the bullet and just go ahead and do it. So I want to thank you for giving us that leadership